It's 4 p.m. Cairo local time, and it's Salma Al-Fei, and you're now watching Q News. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in New Orleans. 10 people have been killed and 30 others were injured after a vehicle drove into a crowd on New Orleans Canal and Bourbon Street early on New Year's Day. According to the city's emergency agency, New Orleans police confirmed they were responding to a mass casualty incident, including fatalities. The injured were transported to 5 local hospitals. Authorities are urging people to avoid the area. The incident occurred just before the All-State Bowl, a college football quarterfinal at the Caesars Superdome, where thousands were expected to attend.
Hey. I love you and Amy's coordinating outfits for the parade.
And for further analysis on the New Orleans incident, we're joined from Washington by the political analyst, Mr. Meher Abdelkader. And welcome to Q News, Mr. Abdelkader. And let me start off by asking you, what are the latest details on the investigation into the deadly crash on Bourbon Street?
عايز نتكلم دلوقتي ولا
Can you hear me, Mr. Abdelkader?
News right now
آخر الأخبار أن الشرطة الفيدرالية
that the FBI that made it is taking the control of the New Orleans police as there is a very important of such a crash that the mayor of New Orleans has stated that it is possible for the crash of a terrorist incident, but the FBI up till now says that it's not a terrorist crash, but it is an personal killing stated from someone even wanted to make a suicide or send a message. But the report says that around 3 a.m. During the gathering of thousands of the people in a district that is known, one of the most famous district, the French district, and in New Orleans state. And during the celebration of the New Year, and the crash took place at the intersection of the Bourbon Street, and that a person that drove very fast and started to crash with the people, and the news said that 30 fatally, or rather 30 were injured, and 2 of the police were wounded.
Sir,
and
Mr. Abdelkader, sir, can you explain to me what are the current security measures in the place with high traffic areas like Bourbon Street so as to prevent future incidents like this to happen again?
It is very difficult. It is normal for the people doing making a celebration. The police will be surrounding the gathering. According to the police of New Orleans, 300 policemen were deployed to impose the security in general in a bid to protect the people, but were distributed among the thousands of the people, and they were centered that made the crash easy to happen. And the man that drove by his vehicle driving so fast that it was very difficult to deal with that for someone intended to kill and these make suicide. But the police swiftly dealt with the man even he was wearing a vest of bullet waterproof, and he had a gun that has been used by the army, and the police swiftly they dealt and killed him. But up till now, the police never mentioned who is the identity of the person and its goals.
And sir, regarding the police and the authorities, how do you think typically they should be responding to mass casualty incidents in such a busy urban environment like New Orleans?
The matter is very difficult for the USA in the year 2024 that witnessed around 600 crashes, among of which around 480 in schools in the USA, and America has 500,000 of guns in the hands of the people, but the police is relentlessly try to dare to limit that sort of attacks, but there are too many people that suffering from the psychiatric problem. And the history mentioned that they made a some sort of a massacres here or there. So according to the statistics issued yesterday, more than 20,900 persons were killed by guns. Around 26,300 persons carrying guns, and some of them are defending the to hold and to own the guns. And the NRA, as an organization that has the too much of money and defending the right of the people in the Congress and the American institutions for the Americans to hold guns. And the elect President Trump is one of the supporters of this organization and advocate the freedom of carrying guns among the Americans. And this phenomenon is in place, and it's not going to vanish even in the upcoming years. Even the people who wish to lay out some limits for carrying such guns and for who's going to buy, but the quantity of the guns among the people is
Thank
huge.
you so much, Mr. Meher Abdelkader, the political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us and for your insights. And now we move on again to the latest developments in Gaza. Floodwaters have exacerbated conditions at the Nasser Medical Complex Field Hospital in Qnews, further deepening the suffering of those affected by the ongoing conflict. Patients and medical staff are battling rising waters, hindering the delivery of vital care, while residents face the daunting task of salvaging belongings from damaged tents. The severe weather has compounded the challenges for hundreds of thousands displaced by the violence. Adding to the crisis, international aid groups reported that Israeli occupation forces have obstructed the entry of humanitarian aid into the region, intensifying the already dire situation. Heavy rainfall has also flooded hundreds of tents in Gaza's displacement camps, compounding the struggles of families already living under severe hardship. Palestinian media reported tents being swept away by strong winds that have battered the region over the past 2 days. And for more analysis, we now move to Salma Marwan in our newsroom. Hello, Salma.
Thank you, Salma. And for further analysis on the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, we're joined from Ramallah by the member of the Palestine Liberation Organization, Mr. Omar El Ghoul. Mr. Omar, thank you so much for joining us on Q News. And first off, with Hamas officials accusing Israel of obstructing ceasefire talks, what are the key sticking points that prevent a lasting ceasefire in Gaza despite international efforts?
As you all know, isn't related to the lives of the Israeli hostages. Since the war waged at using the Israeli hostages along with the United States as a pretext to continue the mass genocide against the Arab Palestinian people. And you know that today that the 400 day of the genocide, and we exceeded the 15 months of such a genocide. Israel is stalling up till this moment, and there was an initiative and a message sent by the Israeli Prime Minister in the 1st of May 2024 to President Joe Biden as an initiative, and as there are pillars for ceasefire. This message was adopted, formulated in a proposal presented to the UN General Security Council, and it was agreed upon under the Title 17, 735 in June the past, even though the resolution wasn't executed and implemented. And initiatives recently were presented for ceasefire and by both sides for 60 days. But Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu insisted that they would never accept the exchanges of hostages unless the number requested and demanded by him as the release of 34 Israeli hostages, and all of them should be alive. Upon the approval of Hamas to release 22 of the hostages alive and 12 dead body of the Israeli hostages that were killed by the Israeli aggression along with the participant US forces. Yet Benjamin Netanyahu and his cabinet refused this matter. Also there was a latest initiative in the past few days. Hamas presented to give us a chance, a break for a whole week to stop the fight, in order to present the names of the hostages that may be presented before the Israeli side. Up till this moment, the Premier of Israel never responded, and today Donald Trump has issued or stated by requesting the Palestinian side to stop the fire and release the hostages, as the Palestinian side is the one to continue the hostages and to request the release of the Israeli hostages. In the meantime, never requested from Israel to release the Palestinian prisoners, and therefore there is an issue and a stance that is unobjective and biased, but it is requested from President Trump, the elected President Trump, to be less biased to the occupation and the colonization state of Israel.
Now, Israel in 2024 alone has detained 8,000 Palestinians in its prisons. How have this and the prolonged conflict affected the psychological and social well-being of Gazan civilians?
Israel, correction the number you've mentioned, has detained following the 7th of October, or to be more specific and accurate, around 20,000 of the prisoners from the West Bank and Gaza, and that means during the past 15 months. And now around 13 to 14,000 of the prisoners, as yet the number of the prisoners from the enclave aren't known yet, but the number has exceeded the 10,000 that reached 12 or rather 11,000, including the prisoners.
That was the member of the Palestine Liberation Organization, Mr. Omar Al-Ghul. Thank you so much for your insights. And now we're going to move back to Salma for more news and developments around the world.
Thank you, Salma, so much. And the Israeli media have reported that Hamas has offered a new detainee exchange deal, including a week-long truce to finalize a list of detainees sought by Israel. Meanwhile, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump called for the release of Israeli detainees in Gaza, urging Hamas to expedite their return.
A lot of you to get you in, and you helped me, and you helped me too. And my numbers were, so they say,
A UN official has revealed that Israeli authorities have denied over 140 UN entry requests to northern Gaza in the past 2 months. The official condemned continued Israeli airstrikes targeting Jabalia and nearby areas, including hospitals and healthcare workers, while displaced Palestinians endure dire conditions around Gaza City. The Palestinian National Campaign to Retrieve Martyrs' Bodies has reported that Israel holds the remains of 198 Palestinians killed in 2024. This number accounts for 1/3 of the 641 documented martyrs in Israeli custody. The numbers, according to the campaign, exclude Gaza martyrs due to the unavailability of the data, but 325 bodies have been returned from Gaza. The United Nations Human Rights Office has issued a report highlighting the systematic destruction of Gaza's healthcare system due to the Israeli strikes. The 23-page report concluded that the conduct of Israeli hostilities in Gaza had destroyed local healthcare. The United Nations has further warned that violations targeting civilians, hospitals, and healthcare workers could mount to crimes against humanity stemming from a blatant disregard for international humanitarian law. Israeli occupation forces have launched raids on Nablus, north of the occupied Jerusalem, and reinforced their presence with military units. Palestinian sources confirmed incursions into several villages in Tubas, with clashes erupting during the raid on a Palestinian refugee camp south of the city. Furthermore, Israeli occupation forces have stormed Tulkarm, patrolling streets in the western and southern neighborhoods. Earlier in the day, military vehicles entered areas south of the city, stopping and interrogating Palestinian residents in field investigations. And moving on to Lebanon, Israeli occupation forces are reportedly preparing to withdraw from the western sector of southern Lebanon, according to the Israeli media. According to reports, and withdrawal will be coordinated with U.S. monitoring mechanisms. Israeli media has reported that the Israeli military will bolster border security infrastructure with plans for a military outpost near every Israeli settlement in the area. The Lebanese army has officially entered the town of Shama in the Tyre district of southern Lebanon following the withdrawal of Israeli forces. This is the second Lebanese town Israel has pulled out from as part of the implementation of the U.S. brokered ceasefire agreement. According to a statement from the Lebanese army, its units have coordinated their entry into Al-Shama with the UNIFIL forces, marking a synchronized withdrawal with Israeli forces. The Lebanese army has confirmed that it will continue its deployment in the region and will conduct surveys to remove any unexploded ordnance in the town. The Israeli occupation military has announced that its air force carried out an airstrike targeting a weapons storage facility in southern Lebanon. The Israeli army alleged that the strike followed the detection of Hezbollah members transferring weapons to a truck in the area. The Israeli army has also revealed plans to establish military positions near all Israeli settlements near the border. Israeli media, citing military sources, have reported that the extending of the country's military presence in Lebanon after the ceasefire was a political decision, with the Israeli army focused on securing strategic positions in the region. And now we move to the latest developments in Syria. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot has expressed hope for a political transition in Syria involving all groups. That came during his visit to Lebanon, where he called for the Syrians to regain control over their future, advocating for a transition that guarantees basic rights and freedoms. Earlier, Barrot and the French Defense Minister arrived in Lebanon to meet the army commander, Joseph Aoun, who is tasked with overseeing the troop deployment in the south. Egypt's Foreign Minister Bedr Abdelati has reaffirmed Cairo's full support for the Syrian people and their legitimate aspirations. In a call with Syria's Transitional Government's Foreign Minister Asad el-Shibani, Abdelati urged all Syrian factions to prioritize national interests, preserve stability, and protect Syria's institution, resources, and territorial integrity. And thousands of people gathered at a Christmas market in Damascus early on Wednesday to welcome the new year with a fireworks display. Crowds strolled through the market waving Syrian flags and recording the event on their phones. The celebrations marked a historic moment for Syria following the capture of Damascus by opposition fighters on December 8, 2024. This led to the ousting of former President Bashar al-Assad, which ended his family's decades-long rule after more than 13 years of civil war. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin, and here's what we have been covering. A vehicle drives into a crowd on New Orleans Canal and Bourbon Street, killing 10 and injuring 30. Suffering in Qnews deepens as floodwaters worsen conditions at Nasser Medical Complex. And the Lebanese army enters Al-Shama town in southern Lebanon after Israeli forces withdraw. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EG to stay informed. And thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.